The day time refused to move. One day, time refused to move. It didn't shatter or collapse. It simply stopped. Not for him, but for everything else. The world froze in the middle of itself, as if reality had been paused by an unseen hand. Cars stood silent in the streets, their engines cut mid-breath. A bird hung motionless in the sky, wings outstretched, never completing its flight. Even the wind had vanished, leaving the air heavy and unnatural. At first, he thought it was a dream, the kind that feels real until you wake up. But there was no waking up. Every step he took echoed into a stillness that swallowed sound. Every person he passed was locked in place, their expressions frozen between moments, laughing, speaking, living, but never continuing. He reached out, touching a stranger's shoulder. Nothing. No reaction, no movement, just silence. That's when he realized the truth. This wasn't a dream. It wasn't even time that had stopped. It was the world itself, waiting, suspended in a state he couldn't understand. And somehow he had been left behind, awake inside it. One day, time stopped. One day, time stopped. Not with an explosion, not with a warning. There was no sound, no flash, no moment anyone could point to and say, that's when it happened. It simply did. 1 second, the world was moving. The next, everything wasn't. Cars froze in the middle of intersections, engines silenced mid-roar. A cyclist hung suspended just inches above the pavement, forever caught between balance and collapse. A drop of rain lingered in the air, unmoving, as if gravity itself had forgotten what to do. The wind vanished, not slowed, not weakened, gone. Leaves stopped mid-fall, locked in impossible positions. The sky looked painted, clouds frozen like a still image stretched across the horizon. Even the smallest motions, the flicker of a blinking eye, the ripple of water in a glass, were gone, as if the world had been reduced to a single frame. And yet it wasn't silent, not completely. There was something else, a presence in the stillness, a pressure that filled the air like the world was holding its breath, not dead, not broken, just waiting. Because time hadn't stopped for everyone. Somewhere, somehow, a few were still moving, walking through the frozen streets, breathing in a motionless world, existing in a moment that refused to continue. They didn't understand it at first. How could they? There was no rule book for something like this. No explanation, no logic that could hold it together. Only questions, endless, echoing questions that no one could answer. Was it a dream, a hallucination, a glitch in reality, or something far worse? Because the longer they stayed in that unmoving world, the more it began to feel intentional, too precise to be random, too complete to be an accident. Everything had stopped at once, perfectly, as if something had reached into the fabric of existence and pressed pause, not to destroy it, not to fix it, but to wait. For what? No one knew. But deep down, beneath the confusion and fear, there was a growing realization, quiet, creeping, impossible to ignore. This wasn't the end of time. It was something else entirely, something unfinished. And whatever had caused it hadn't left. It was still there, watching, waiting for something to happen, for someone to act, for an input that had not yet been given. The one who could still walk. He was one of the few who could still walk. At first, he didn't realize anything was wrong. The day had begun like any other, routine, predictable, forgettable. The city moved with its usual rhythm, a constant flow of motion and noise. People passed by without noticing each other. Cars filled the streets. Life unfolded exactly as it always had. And then it didn't. He took another step, and something felt off. Not immediately obvious. Not something he could explain. Just a subtle shift, like the world had missed a beat. He stopped, looked around. That's when he saw it. A man across the street stood frozen mid-stride, one foot hovering above the ground, his body leaning forward as if time had forgotten to let him land. A woman nearby held a cup of coffee tilted in her hand, the liquid suspended mid-spill, each droplet hanging impossibly in the air. Nothing moved. Nothing continued. For a moment, he couldn't process it. His mind searched for logic, for reason, anything that could make sense of what he was seeing. But the longer he looked, the clearer it became. This wasn't a trick. This wasn't confusion. This was real, and somehow he was still moving. His breath came faster. He raised his hand, watching as his fingers moved freely, unaffected by whatever had stopped the rest of the world. He took a cautious step forward, then another. The ground responded. The air shifted slightly around him, but everything else remained exactly the same. Still, silent, untouched. "Hello?" he called out. His voice sounded wrong, too loud, too sharp, cutting through a space that wasn't meant to carry sound anymore. It echoed briefly, then disappeared into the stillness. No response. He approached the frozen man in the street, circling him slowly. Up close, it was even more unsettling. The man's expression was locked in a moment of focus, unaware that he would never complete the step he had started. Carefully, he reached out and touched his shoulder. The contact was real, solid. But there was no reaction, no shift, no breath, no life beyond the surface. He pulled his hand back quickly, a chill running through him. This wasn't just time slowing down. It was something else entirely, something deeper. He moved through the city, each step filled with growing unease. The further he went, the more examples he found. People caught mid-laugh, mid-conversation, mid-motion. A dog frozen in a leap. A glass shattered in the air, its pieces suspended like a paused explosion. It was too precise, too complete, as if every single thing had been stopped at the exact same moment, except him. "Why me?" he whispered. The question felt small in the emptiness. There was no answer, only silence. But as he kept walking, a new thought began to form, quiet at first, then louder with every step. If he could move, then maybe he wasn't alone. The idea sent a strange mix of fear and hope through him. Because if there were others like him, then this wasn't random. It wasn't an accident. It meant something. It had a purpose. And somewhere in that frozen world, there might be someone else walking too, watching, waiting, just like him. A world that wouldn't respond. At first, he thought there had to be rules. There had to be something, some hidden logic behind the stillness, some pattern he could understand if he just looked closely enough. So he began to test it, carefully, deliberately, like someone afraid the world might shatter if he pushed too hard. He approached a newspaper stand, its pages caught mid-flip by a wind that no longer existed. Reaching out, he touched the edge of the paper. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, it moved, not on its own, only because of him. The page bent under his fingers, the frozen moment breaking just enough to respond to his presence. But the second he let go, it stopped again, suspended, unnatural, as if it had never been touched at all. He frowned. "Okay," he whispered. "So things can move, but only if I move them." It sounded simple, but it wasn't, because nothing continued. He pushed a glass off a nearby table. It fell, slowly at first, like it was resisting the idea of motion itself, then dropped to the ground. But it didn't shatter. It stopped, mid-air, just inches above the floor. He stared at it, his heart beginning to pound. That's not possible. He reached out again, nudging it slightly. The glass shifted, then froze again. It wasn't gravity. It wasn't physics. It was something else entirely, something that allowed motion but refused completion. Like the world could start actions but not finish them. A growing unease settled in his chest. He moved faster now, more urgently, testing everything he could find. He knocked over objects, shouted into the empty streets, even tried to force movement into people, pushing arms, turning heads. Nothing worked. People didn't react, didn't blink, didn't breathe. Up close, they looked real, alive even. But they weren't there, not in the way they should have been. It was like interacting with statues that remembered being human. "This doesn't make sense," he muttered. His voice felt heavier now, swallowed almost instantly by the unmoving air. Even sound didn't behave normally. It didn't travel, didn't echo. It just existed briefly, then vanished, as if the world refused to carry anything forward. He stopped walking. That thought lingered, refused to carry anything forward. That was it. That was what felt so wrong. It wasn't just that everything had stopped. It was that nothing could continue. Not motion, not sound, not cause and effect. Everything existed in fragments, beginnings without endings, actions without outcomes, a system that allowed input but denied resolution. A chill ran through him. "Like it's waiting," he said quietly. The word hung in his mind. Waiting for what? He turned slowly, scanning the frozen city again, but now it felt different. Before it had seemed empty. Now it felt paused, held in place. Every frozen expression, every suspended object. every incomplete moment. Not abandoned, not broken, just paused. As if something had interrupted the natural flow of reality and was refusing to let it continue until a condition was met. His breathing became shallow. "If this is waiting," he whispered, "then for who?" The answer came to him before he could stop it. For someone who could move. For someone like him. His chest tightened. That meant this wasn't random. It wasn't an accident that he could walk while everything else stood still. It was part of it. A role. A function. And if that was true, then everything he did might matter more than he understood. Every step, every action, every choice. He looked down at his hands, flexing his fingers slowly. The only thing in the world that still obeyed him. The only thing that could create change, even if that change never fully completed. Input, he murmured. The word unfamiliar, yet strangely fitting. The world responded only when he acted, but it never moved on its own, never continued, never resolved. A system waiting for input, but not yet ready to process it. And suddenly the silence didn't feel empty anymore. It felt expectant, like something unseen was watching, observing, measuring, not interfering, just waiting to see what he would do next. And for the first time since it all began, he hesitated. Because whatever this was, it wasn't just a broken world. It was a world that wouldn't respond. Not yet. Not until something or someone gave it a reason to. The woman who was awake. He didn't notice her at first. In a world where everything stood still, his eyes had learned to ignore what didn't move. Stillness had become the default, the expected, the unchanging background of everything he saw. So when something did move, his mind almost rejected it. At the edge of his vision there was a flicker, a shift that didn't belong. He turned, and for a moment, just a moment, he thought he imagined it. But then he saw her, walking, not frozen, not suspended, not trapped between seconds, moving. His breath caught in his throat. She stepped carefully across the empty street, her movements slow, deliberate, like someone who had learned not to trust the ground beneath them. Her eyes scanned everything, alert, cautious, aware, alive. "You?" he started, his voice breaking the silence too sharply. She stopped instantly, not like the others, not locked in place. She chose to stop, and then slowly she turned toward him. Their eyes met. For the first time since the world had stopped, someone looked back. The moment stretched between them, heavy with disbelief. "You can move?" he asked, the words almost too fragile to exist. She studied him, her expression unreadable at first. Then, something softened, just slightly. "How long have you been awake?" she asked. Awake. The word felt wrong, or maybe it felt too right. "I don't know," he admitted. "A few hours, maybe longer. I can't tell." She nodded faintly, as if she expected that answer. "Time doesn't work here," she said quietly. "You'll stop trying to measure it eventually." There was something in her voice, something tired, something that had already gone through the confusion he was still trapped in. "You've been here longer," he said. It wasn't a question. "Yes." "How long?" She hesitated, then gave a small, almost hollow smile. "I stopped counting." A silence followed, not the empty kind he had grown used to, but something heavier, shared, real. He stepped closer, still unsure if she might disappear like everything else. "But you're real, right?" he asked. "You're not just part of this?" She let out a quiet breath. "I asked myself the same thing when I found the first person who could move." His heart skipped. "The first?" She nodded. "You're not the only one." A strange mix of relief and fear washed over him. "How many are there?" "I don't know," she said. "Not many, I've only seen a few. And even then, not for long." "What do you mean?" "They don't stay," she replied. Something in her tone shifted, subtle but enough to make him uneasy. "They disappear." The word landed harder than anything else she had said. "Disappear?" he repeated. She looked away, scanning the frozen buildings around them. "One moment they're there," she said. "The next, they're gone. No sound, just gone." "Where do they go?" "I don't know." The honesty in her voice made it worse. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to process it. "This doesn't make any sense," he muttered. "None of it does." "No," she agreed softly. "It doesn't." Another pause. Then he asked the question that had been building in his mind since he first saw her. "Have you tried to leave?" Her expression changed instantly. Not fear, not exactly. Something deeper. "I've tried everything," she said. "Walking, running, following roads out of the city. climbing buildings, breaking things, waiting. And nothing works. The way she said it, flat certain, told him she wasn't exaggerating. The world doesn't end, she continued. It just repeats. Streets loop. Paths lead back to where you started, like it's not meant to be escaped. He felt a chill crawl up his spine. A closed system, he whispered. She looked at him, surprised. You've thought about it too. He nodded slowly. It feels like something is controlling it, he said. Like it's waiting. Her eyes darkened slightly. Yes, she said. I felt that too. They stood in silence again, both aware of the same unspoken thought. This wasn't random. It wasn't natural. It was intentional. Designed. But for what? He asked. She didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked past him, her gaze focusing on something in the distance. At first, he thought she was just thinking. Then he realized she wasn't. She was staring at something specific. What is it? He asked, turning to follow her gaze. At the far end of the street, between two rows of frozen cars, stood a figure, perfectly still, like everything else. But something about him felt different. Wrong. Is that? He began. Yes, she said quietly. Her voice had changed again, tighter, more controlled. I've seen him before. A cold weight settled in his chest. Does he move? She didn't look away from the figure. Not at first, she said, a long pause. Then, but he will. The air around them seemed to grow heavier, more tense, as if the world itself was holding on to something, just about to let it go. And for the first time since he found someone else who could move, he wished he hadn't, because whatever was coming next was already watching them. The man who was waiting. At first, he looked like everything else, still, unmoving, trapped in the same frozen moment as the rest of the world. But something about him felt wrong, not visibly, not in a way that could be explained with logic or reason. If you looked at him from a distance, he was just another figure caught in time, a man standing between two rows of silent cars, his posture relaxed, his head slightly tilted, as if observing something that no longer moved. But the longer they looked, the more it became impossible to ignore. He's different, the woman whispered. He nodded slowly, unable to take his eyes off the figure. It wasn't movement. Not yet. It was something else, a presence, the same feeling he had sensed earlier, the invisible weight in the air, the quiet pressure that made the frozen world feel less like an accident and more like a decision. Have you seen him before? He asked. Yes, she said, a few times. Her hesitation said more than her words. He wasn't like the others. A silence stretched between them. Then carefully they began to move closer, step by step. The sound of their footsteps felt too loud in the stillness, each one breaking a silence that wasn't meant to be broken. The figure didn't react, didn't shift, didn't acknowledge their presence in any way. Up close, he looked ordinary, a man in his 30s, maybe older. His expression was calm, almost neutral, caught in a moment that didn't reveal anything about what he was thinking. But his eyes, there was something about his eyes. They didn't feel empty. They didn't feel frozen. They felt aware. He's not like them, the woman said under her breath. No, he agreed. Carefully, he stepped closer. Hello? He called out. No response. The man remained exactly as he was, unmoving, unblinking. He circled around him slowly, studying every detail. Nothing changed. No twitch, no breath, no sign of life beyond the illusion of it. Maybe he's just another one, he said, though he didn't believe it. The woman didn't answer. Instead, she took a step forward, then another, until she was standing directly in front of the figure. Last time, she said quietly, he was like this too. He felt a chill. And then, she didn't respond immediately. Her eyes stayed locked on the man's face. And then he moved. The words barely had time to settle before it happened. A blink, so small, so quick, but unmistakable. Both of them froze. Did you see that? He whispered. Yes. The air shifted, not physically, but perceptibly, like something invisible had just changed state. The weight in the atmosphere grew heavier, pressing down on them, surrounding them. Then, slowly, the man's head turned, not abruptly, not unnaturally, smooth, controlled, intentional, until his eyes met theirs. For a moment, no one spoke, no one moved. The silence deepened, thick and suffocating. And then, he smiled. Not wide, not friendly, just enough to confirm one thing. He was aware. You finally noticed, the man said. His voice didn't echo, didn't fade. It existed fully, clear and present, as if the rules of this frozen world didn't apply to him at all. The protagonist felt his pulse spike. "Who are you?" he asked. The man tilted his head slightly, as if considering the question. "That depends," he replied, "on what you think this is." The answer only made things worse. "This world," the protagonist said, gesturing around them. "What happened to it?" The man's gaze drifted briefly across the frozen city. "What you're seeing," he said calmly, "isn't what you think." "Then explain it," the woman snapped, her voice tight with frustration. The man looked back at her. For a moment, his expression shifted, something almost like recognition. "You've been here longer," he observed. She didn't respond. "You've tried to leave?" he continued. Her silence confirmed it. A faint smile returned to his lips. "And you couldn't." "Stop talking like you know everything," she said sharply. "If you know something, just say it." The man didn't react to her tone. Instead, he took a slow step forward. The movement felt wrong, not because it was unnatural, but because it was too natural, too smooth, too unaffected, like he wasn't bound by the same limitations as them. "This isn't time stopping," he said. The words cut through the tension instantly. Both of them went still. "What?" the protagonist asked. The man's eyes locked onto his. "This isn't time stopping," he repeated. A pause. "Then it's the system." The air around them seemed to distort subtly, almost imperceptibly. A flicker passed through the environment like a glitch too small to fully see. Waiting for input. The words settled into the silence, heavy, unavoidable. "What system?" the protagonist demanded. The man studied him for a moment as if measuring something unseen. "That's the question you should be asking," he said. "No," the protagonist replied. "The question is what you are." For the first time, the man's smile faded. Not completely, just enough. "I'm what happens," he said slowly, "when something responds." A cold wave of realization washed over both of them. "Responds to what?" the woman asked. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, his gaze shifted between them, back and forth, carefully, like he was evaluating them. "You shouldn't be awake," he said finally. The statement sent a sharp chill through the air. "What does that mean?" the protagonist asked. "It means," the man replied, "something has already gone wrong." The world around them flickered again, this time more noticeably. A distant car shifted slightly, then snapped back into place. The sky seemed to ripple, like a corrupted image struggling to stay intact. "You feel it, don't you?" the man said quietly. The protagonist swallowed. "Yes." "The delay," the man continued, "the hesitation, the lack of response." He stepped closer. "This system wasn't designed for awareness." A pause, "for choice." The implications hit hard. "If it's waiting for input," the protagonist said slowly, "then that means someone is supposed to decide," the man finished. Silence, heavy, final. The woman took a step back. "No," she said. "No, that's not possible." The man looked at her. "Isn't it?" Her expression tightened, but she didn't answer. "Think about it," he continued. "A world that doesn't move, a system that doesn't respond, not until something changes." His eyes shifted back to the protagonist, to you. The weight of those words settled deep. "You're wrong," the protagonist said, though his voice lacked certainty. The man smiled again, amused. "Then why are you still here?" No answer. "Because there wasn't one." The man turned slightly, glancing at the frozen world around them. "This isn't a malfunction," he said. "It's a pause." Another flicker, stronger this time, like the world was straining against something unseen. "And pauses," he continued, "don't last forever." The protagonist felt his chest tighten. "What happens when it ends?" The man looked back at him, and for the first time, there was something in his eyes that wasn't calm, something deeper, darker. "You'll find out," he said. A low tremor passed through the ground, subtle, but real. The woman's breath caught. "Did you feel that?" "Yes," the protagonist said. The man's smile widened slightly. "Good," he said. "That means it's almost time." "For what?" the protagonist asked. The man didn't answer. He didn't need to, because somewhere deep in the stillness, something had already begun to move. "This isn't time stopping." "This isn't time stopping." The words didn't just hang in the air, they settled, like something heavy finding its place. For a moment, neither of them responded. Because if that was true, then everything they thought they understood, everything they had been trying to explain, was wrong. "What do you mean?" he finally asked, his voice quieter now, more cautious. The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he walked past them, calm, unhurried, as if the frozen world around him wasn't an obstacle, but a space he had always belonged to. "Look around you," he said. They did. Cars suspended mid-motion, people frozen in fragments of life, a world caught between moments. "It looks like time has stopped," the man continued, "but that's only because you're thinking about it the wrong way." "Then explain it the right way," the woman said, her tone sharp. The man stopped walking. Then, slowly, he turned back to face them. "This isn't time stopping," he repeated. "It's the system." A faint distortion rippled through the air, subtle but undeniable, like something invisible reacting to the words themselves. Waiting for input. Silence followed, not empty, not passive, but charged with meaning they hadn't yet fully grasped. "A system?" he echoed. "What system?" The man smiled slightly. "You're standing inside it." The answer sent a cold wave through his chest. "No," he said immediately. "That doesn't make sense. This is the real world." "Is it?" the man asked calmly. He hesitated, because for the first time since this began, he wasn't sure. "If this is a system," the woman said, stepping forward, "then where are the rules? Where are the boundaries? Why can we move, but everything else can't?" The man's expression sharpened slightly, not annoyed, not impressed, but focused. "Because you're not part of the process anymore," he said. They both went still. "What does that mean?" she asked. "It means," the man continued, "the system has paused its execution." "Execution?" he repeated. "Yes." The word felt mechanical, deliberate, cold. "Think of it this way," the man said. "Everything you see, the people, the movement, the cause and effect, that's all part of a sequence. A sequence that's now paused." "Why?" he asked. The man's eyes met his. "Because something interrupted it." A flicker passed through the sky, brief and like a glitch struggling to hide itself. "An error?" the woman asked. "Not exactly." "Then what?" The man stepped closer. "A condition." The word landed differently, more intentional, more controlled. "What kind of condition?" he asked. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he looked at both of them, carefully, almost analytically. "As long as the condition isn't met," he said slowly, "the system won't continue." The implications were immediate. "And we're part of that condition?" the protagonist asked. The man's silence confirmed it. A tight pressure built in his chest. "That's why we can move," he realized, "because we're outside the sequence." "Yes," the man said, "and everything else," he continued, looking around, "is waiting for it to resume." "Yes." The simplicity of the answer made it more terrifying. "Waiting for what?" the woman asked. The man's gaze shifted again. This time, it didn't feel neutral. It felt directed. "Input," he said. The word echoed in their minds. "But we've been moving this whole time," the protagonist said. "Touching things, changing things. Why hasn't anything happened?" "Because that's not the kind of input it's waiting for." A pause. "Then it's not about movement." The tension sharpened. "Then what is it about?" he asked. The man stepped even closer now, close enough that the distance between them felt intentional, controlled. "Choice," he said. The word cut deeper than anything else. "Choice?" the woman repeated. "Yes." The man's eyes locked onto theirs. "This system doesn't respond to random actions. It responds to decisions." A low vibration passed through the ground again, stronger this time. The world flickered. A distant building shimmered, its edges distorting for a split second before snapping back into place. "You feel that?" the man asked quietly. They both nodded. "That's the system trying to continue," he said. "But it can't." "Why not?" the protagonist asked. "Because no one has made the decision yet." The words settled heavily. "What decision?" the woman demanded. The man's expression didn't change. "You'll know when you're ready." "That's not an answer," she snapped. "It's the only one you're going to get." Silence, tense, unstable. The protagonist ran a hand through his hair, his thoughts racing. "If this is true," he said slowly, "then that means everything, this whole world, is waiting on us." "Yes." "And if we don't decide?" The man held his gaze. "Then it stays like this." The weight of that possibility pressed down on him. Forever. A world frozen, unfinished. "Why us?" he asked. "Why not someone else?" The man's smile returned, but this time there was something darker behind it. "Because you're awake," he said, "and most people never are." Another flicker. Stronger now. The air itself seemed unstable, like it was struggling to maintain its form. "This state isn't sustainable," the man continued. "The longer it stays paused, the more unstable it becomes. A crack appeared in the ground nearby, thin, almost invisible, but real. "What happens if it breaks?" the woman asked. The man looked at it briefly, then back at them. "You don't want to find out." The answer was enough. The protagonist swallowed, his mind racing. A system, a condition, a decision. Everything pointing to one unavoidable truth. "This isn't time stopping," he said quietly. "No," the man replied. "It's something else." The man nodded once. "Something much more important." The world trembled again, louder this time, closer, and somewhere deep beneath the silence, something was waiting. Not for time to return, not for the world to fix itself, but for them to choose. When reality starts to break. At first, it was subtle, so subtle that it could have been ignored, dismissed as imagination, as stress, as the mind struggling to make sense of something it was never meant to understand. A flicker in the corner of his eye, a slight distortion in the distance, a moment where the world didn't feel stable. But then it happened again, and again. And this time, he couldn't ignore it. "Did you see that?" he asked. The woman didn't answer immediately. Her eyes were fixed on the horizon, her expression tense. "I felt it," she said. That was worse, because seeing something could be questioned. Feeling it meant it was real. The air shifted, not like wind, but like pressure, like the space around them was tightening, compressing, reacting to something unseen. The frozen world, once perfectly still, now felt strained, as if it was being held together by something that was starting to fail. A low vibration passed through the ground, not enough to shake anything loose, but enough to remind them this world was no longer stable. "It's getting worse," she whispered. He nodded. He could feel it too. The stillness that once felt absolute now carried tension beneath it, like a surface about to crack. The frozen objects around them, cars, buildings, people, no longer seemed perfectly locked in place. There was a faint inconsistency to them, like they were struggling to remain where they were. A man across the street flickered. For a fraction of a second, his position shifted, just slightly before snapping back. Not movement, not life, just error. "Okay, no," he said under his breath. "That's not supposed to happen." "None of this is supposed to happen," she replied. Another flicker, stronger this time. The sky itself rippled, like a reflection disturbed by something that wasn't there. The clouds, once frozen in place, blurred at the edges, their shapes briefly collapsing before reforming exactly as they had been, like the world was trying to correct itself, or failing to. "What did he say?" she asked suddenly. He didn't need to ask who she meant. "The system is waiting for input," he said. Her jaw tightened. "And if it doesn't get it?" He didn't answer, because they both already knew. The ground beneath them cracked again, this time louder. A thin fracture spread across the pavement, stopping abruptly as if it had hit an invisible boundary. The sound lingered longer than it should have, echoing. That shouldn't have been possible. Sound didn't carry in this world. But now, it did. "Something's changing," he said. "Yes," she replied, and not in a good way. He looked around, trying to understand what was happening. The patterns were breaking. The rules, whatever they were, no longer held perfectly. The system was no longer just paused. It was destabilizing. A car nearby shimmered violently for a moment, its form blurring, splitting into overlapping versions of itself before snapping back into a single, solid object. The effect lasted less than a second, but it was enough. "That's not a pause," he said. "No," she agreed, "that's a failure." The word felt dangerous, because if the system was failing, then whatever held this world together was breaking. Another tremor, stronger now. A nearby window shattered, but the glass didn't fall. It hung in the air, suspended like everything else. Only now the pieces trembled, vibrating slightly as if caught between two states, stillness and motion. "What happens if it can't hold anymore?" she asked. Her voice was quieter now, not panicked, but close. He didn't want to answer, but he forced himself to. "It breaks." The simplicity of it made it worse. Around them, the world began to distort more frequently. Objects flickered, edges blurred, shadows shifted without cause. The frozen people, once perfectly still, now seemed unstable, their forms glitching for brief, unnatural moments. Like they weren't fully there anymore, like the system was losing precision, losing control. "This is because of us," she said suddenly. He looked at her. "What?" "We're not supposed to be here," she continued. He said it himself. We're not part of the process. Her voice grew tighter. And now the system doesn't know what to do with us. Another crack split through the ground, wider this time, longer, spreading further before stopping abruptly again. A limit, a boundary. Then we need to do something, he said. Like what? He hesitated, because he didn't know. Move, act, choose. Nothing they had done so far had mattered. Nothing had changed. Except now, everything was getting worse. A deep resonating sound rolled through the air, low, unnatural, like something massive shifting beneath the surface of reality itself. Both of them froze, not because they couldn't move, but because something inside them told them to stop. This wasn't just instability anymore. This was escalation. The system wasn't just breaking, it was reacting. And whatever came next wasn't going to wait much longer. He took a slow breath, his heart pounding. If this is it, he said quietly. If this is where it starts to break. He looked at her, then at the world around them, glitching, trembling, unraveling. Then we don't have much time left. Another flicker, stronger than before, longer. This time, the world didn't snap back immediately. For a split second, everything disappeared, gone, replaced by nothing. Then it returned, exactly as it was. But now they knew it wasn't stable, it wasn't safe, and whatever was holding it together was starting to let go. You were never supposed to wake up. You were never supposed to wake up. The words didn't sound threatening. They didn't need to be. They carried something far heavier than fear, certainty. The kind of certainty that leaves no room for denial. He felt it immediately, like a weight pressing down on his chest. What does that mean? He asked. But even as the question left his mouth, part of him already understood. The man didn't answer right away. Instead, he watched them. Not casually, not curiously, carefully, like they weren't people, but variables. You think you're here by accident, the man said at last, that this just happened to you. The woman crossed her arms, her voice tight. Didn't it? The man tilted his head slightly. No. The simplicity of the answer made it worse. Then explain it, she said. His gaze shifted to her, studying her in a way that felt almost invasive. You've been awake longer than most, he said. You've seen what happens. Her expression hardened. They disappear. Yes, the word echoed between them. They're removed from the process, the man continued, because they don't belong here. A chill ran through him. Neither do we? He asked. The man's eyes moved to him. No, he said, you don't. The ground trembled faintly beneath their feet. The instability was getting worse, faster now. You keep saying that, he said, but you still haven't explained why. The man took a step closer. Because this system wasn't designed for awareness, he said. It wasn't designed for people who can step outside the sequence and observe it. A flicker passed through the world again, stronger this time. The sky fractured briefly, like a screen glitching under pressure. You're not part of the execution, he continued. You're not part of the flow. Then what are we? The woman demanded. The man's expression didn't change. You're interruptions. The word landed hard, cold, unforgiving. Interruptions get corrected, he added. A long silence followed. Neither of them spoke, because they both understood what that meant. That's what's happening, isn't it? The protagonist said quietly. The instability, the glitches, it's the system trying to fix us. Yes, no hesitation, no doubt. The answer came too easily. His chest tightened. So what happens when it succeeds? The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he looked past them, at the frozen world that was no longer perfectly still, at the cracks forming, at the flickers growing stronger. At first, he said slowly, it tries to ignore you. Another tremor, closer now. But when that fails, a pause, it removes you. The woman took a step back. No, she said, that's not what this is. You've seen it happen, the man replied. Her silence betrayed her. They didn't just disappear, he continued. They were erased. The word hung in the air. Erased, not moved, not taken, gone, completely. Then why are we still here? The protagonist asked. If we're not supposed to exist, why hasn't it removed us already? For the first time, the man hesitated, only slightly, but enough. Because, he said, you're not just interruptions anymore. The tension sharpened instantly. What does that mean? The woman asked. The man's gaze locked onto them. You've progressed too far. A deep vibration rolled through the ground, stronger than anything before. The world around them flickered violently, buildings distorting, shadows shifting, reality struggling to maintain its form. It's no longer a simple correction, he continued. Now, he paused, as if choosing his words carefully. You're part of the condition. The realization hit like a shockwave. The condition, he repeated, the one keeping everything paused. Yes, the implications were immediate. And if we're removed, the woman said slowly. The man nodded once. The system continues. Silence, heavy, unavoidable. The protagonist felt his thoughts spiral. So either we stay, he said, and everything breaks, or we disappear, the woman finished, and everything continues. The man said nothing. He didn't need to, because they already understood. A choice, not just about them, but about everything. Another flicker, longer this time. The world dimmed, its edges unstable, like it might not come back. You were never supposed to wake up, the man said again. But this time, it didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a fact. And now that they had, the system was running out of ways to deal with them, which meant one thing. Soon, it would stop trying. When the system decides, the moment didn't arrive all at once. It built, slowly, inevitably, like pressure gathering beneath the surface of something that could no longer hold. The world had already begun to fracture, glitches spreading, cracks forming, reality struggling to remain intact. But now, it was different. Now it felt focused, directed, as if something unseen had finally stopped waiting and started deciding. Do you feel that? She whispered. He nodded. It wasn't just the tremors anymore. It wasn't just the flickers or the distortions. It was intention. The air itself felt heavier, charged with something deliberate. The silence, once empty, now carried weight, like it was filled with a presence too large to see. The system was no longer passive. It was active. A low, resonating sound rolled through the ground deeper than before. The cracks beneath their feet widened, spreading further this time, no longer stopping at invisible limits. The boundaries were breaking. It's changing, he said. No, the man replied calmly. It's choosing. The words sent a chill through both of them. What does that mean? She asked. The man didn't look at her. It means the pause is ending. Another flicker, longer. The world around them dimmed, like a screen losing power. The frozen figures, once perfectly still, began to distort, their forms stretching slightly before snapping back. Unstable, uncertain, on the verge of something irreversible. And when it ends, he asked. The man finally turned to face him. Everything continues, he said. A pause, or everything resets. The difference wasn't clear, and that was the problem. What decides that? The protagonist pressed. For the first time, the man's expression lost its calm certainty. Not fear, but something close. You do. The answer hit harder than anything else. No, he said immediately. That's not possible. You're part of the condition, the man replied. You already know that. Another tremor, stronger. This time, a building in the distance shifted, not fully moving, but enough to break the illusion of stillness. The world was slipping. You said it responds to choice, the woman said, her voice unsteady. But we haven't chosen anything. The man looked at her. That's exactly the problem. Silence, heavy, unavoidable, because now they understood. Doing nothing was a choice, and the system had been waiting, not just for action, but for a decision. A deep rising hum filled the air, growing louder with each passing second. The cracks beneath them spread rapidly now, no longer controlled, no longer contained. Time, whatever it was beginning to move again, but not correctly, not safely. We're out of time, he said. There was never time, the man replied. Only the illusion of it. The world flickered again, and this time it didn't fully return. Parts of it remained distorted, broken, incomplete. The system was no longer waiting, it was resolving. One way or another. What do we do? She asked. Her voice, for the first time, carried fear. Real fear. He didn't answer, because whatever came next was no longer about understanding. It was about choosing. And somewhere beyond what they could see, the system had already begun to decide. The question. In the end, it was never about time. Not really. Time didn't stop. It didn't break. It didn't disappear. It waited, just like everything else. The world, the people, the moment itself, all of it, suspended. Not because it couldn't continue, but because something hadn't been decided. He stood there, in a reality that refused to move forward, feeling the weight of something far greater than fear. Understanding, slow, inevitable, unavoidable. This was never random, never an accident. It was a system. And like all systems, it required an input, a choice. Not just any choice, the right one. Or maybe the final one. He looked around one last time, at the frozen world, at the cracks forming beneath it, at the fragile illusion of everything that used to be real. And then he realized the system wasn't asking everyone, it was asking him, always had been. The silence deepened, waiting, watching. And then only one question remained. If everything depended on you, what would you choose?
Shadow